face. Your big, stupid face. Looking at it makes me feel like God is projectile vomiting right in my eyes. And it burns.
When people talk about the greatest action stars of the last 40 years, the conversation usually begins with familiar names. Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Clint Eastwood. Every one of them reinvented themselves as the decades passed, chasing new characters and new challenges to keep audiences guessing. Then there's Jason Statham. What's remarkable isn't that he changed Hollywood. It's that Hollywood eventually changed around him. For more than a quarter of a century, moviegoers have walked into theaters knowing almost exactly what kind of hero they were about to watch. A quiet man, a dangerous man, a man who rarely smiles, wastes no words, and somehow always ends up fighting impossible odds. In an industry obsessed with transformation, Jason Statham built one of the most successful careers of the modern era by becoming something audiences could always count on. That's far more difficult than it sounds. Many actors have tried to create an unforgettable screen persona. Most eventually outgrow it, or audiences simply move on. But somehow, year after year, Jason Statham kept proving there was still room in Hollywood for an old-fashioned action hero. One who relied less on superheroes, computer-generated spectacles, or emotional speeches, and more on physical presence, practical stunts, and quiet confidence. There's an old saying in show business, leave them wanting more. Statham chose a different philosophy. He found a style that worked, refined it until it became instantly recognizable, and turned consistency into one of the strongest personal brands in modern cinema. Whether he was behind the wheel of a high-performance car, standing on the deck of a giant cargo ship, or walking calmly away from another explosion, audiences knew exactly what they were getting, and that familiarity became part of the appeal. The most surprising part of his story happened long before the cameras ever started rolling. Jason Statham wasn't raised dreaming of becoming a Hollywood movie star. He wasn't a child actor, nor did he graduate from a prestigious drama academy. In fact, there was a time when acting wasn't even part of his plan. Before he ever threw a punch on screen, he spent years representing Britain in competitive diving, earned a living selling jewelry and perfume on London's streets, and even worked as a fashion model. Those unlikely experiences would eventually lead him to one unexpected meeting with director Guy Ritchie, a chance encounter that changed not only his life, but also the future of modern action films. For someone who would later become one of Hollywood's most recognizable action stars, Jason Statham's path into acting was almost unbelievably unconventional. During the 1980s and early 1990s, his life revolved around sport. As a member of Britain's national diving squad, he trained relentlessly and competed internationally for more than a decade. Diving demanded extraordinary discipline, balance, and fearlessness, qualities that audiences would later recognize in nearly every action scene he performed. Yet, despite years of dedication, Olympic glory never arrived, and eventually Statham found himself searching for another way to make a living. Like countless young Londoners, he took whatever opportunities came his way. He sold inexpensive jewelry and imitation perfume in busy markets, learning how to read people, negotiate under pressure, and project confidence even when facing rejection. Those experiences may have seemed ordinary at the time, but they gave him something many professionally trained actors struggled to imitate: authenticity. He knew how real working-class Londoners spoke, joked, and carried themselves because he had lived among them every day. Fate stepped in during the late 1990s. While modeling for the clothing brand French Connection, Statham caught the attention of director Guy Ritchie, who was searching for fresh faces rather than established stars for a gritty British crime film. After hearing about Statham's background as a street vendor, Ritchie reportedly asked him to demonstrate how he would sell stolen goods. Statham didn't need to act. He simply drew upon years of real experience, delivering such a convincing performance that Ritchie immediately saw the natural screen presence he had been looking for. That decision led to Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels in 1998, a film that became an unexpected sensation and introduced audiences to a tough, sharp-tongued newcomer with unmistakable charisma. 2 years later came Snatch, where Statham reunited with Guy Ritchie alongside Brad Pitt, Benicio del Toro, and an outstanding ensemble cast. Although surrounded by internationally recognized stars, he held his own with remarkable confidence. He wasn't trying to imitate a hardened London tough. He already understood that world. Without realizing it, Hollywood had just discovered a leading man whose greatest strength was making authenticity look effortless. Success in British crime films earned Jason Statham respect, but it didn't make him an international star. That breakthrough came in 2002 with a film that would define the next chapter of his career, The Transporter. As Frank Martin, a former Special Forces operative turned professional driver, Statham introduced audiences to a hero unlike the wisecracking action stars of earlier generations. Martin followed a strict set of rules, spoke only when necessary, and handled danger with almost surgical precision. The role demanded far more than convincing dialogue. It required elite driving skills, martial arts, and physically demanding fight choreography, all areas where Statham's athletic background gave him a clear advantage. Unlike many Hollywood actors who relied heavily on stunt doubles, Statham insisted on performing as much of the action himself as possible. Years of diving had given him exceptional body control, while his training in kickboxing, karate, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu allowed the fight scenes to feel fast, believable, and brutally efficient. Audiences could sense the difference. The action looked real because so much of it actually was. The success of The Transporter quickly turned him into one of Hollywood's most dependable action leads. Then came Crank in 2006, perhaps the most outrageous film of his early career. Playing a hitman who had to keep his adrenaline constantly elevated to stay alive, Statham embraced a level of chaos rarely seen in mainstream action movies. The sequel, Crank: High Voltage, pushed the idea even further, becoming even louder, faster, and more outrageous. Despite the increasingly unbelievable situations, one thing never changed. Statham remained remarkably composed. Whether racing through city streets, battling dozens of opponents, or surviving explosions that seemed to defy common sense, he projected the same calm confidence that had become his trademark. By the end of the decade, audiences no longer needed to know the plot before buying a ticket. Seeing Jason Statham's name on the poster was often enough. They knew exactly what awaited them: hard-hitting action, practical stunt work, and a leading man who never seemed intimidated by impossible odds. By the 2010s, Jason Statham had accomplished something very few actors ever manage. He was no longer simply starring in action movies. He had become a brand. Audiences knew exactly what they would get when his name appeared on a poster, and that reliability became one of his greatest strengths. Hollywood soon began placing him alongside some of the biggest legends of the genre. In the Expendables series, Statham shared the screen with Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, Bruce Willis, and later Chuck Norris. For many viewers over 50, it felt like a celebration of the action heroes they had grown up watching. Yet, despite standing beside these iconic names, Statham never felt out of place. Instead, he represented a new generation carrying the torch of old-school action cinema. His career reached another milestone when he joined the Fast and Furious franchise as Deckard Shaw. Initially introduced as a ruthless villain, the character quickly became one of the series' most popular additions. Statham's effortless chemistry with Dwayne Johnson proved so entertaining that it led to the spin-off Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw, expanding his audience even further. What made all of this remarkable was how little he changed. He never relied on elaborate costumes or dramatic emotional speeches. His shaved head, unmistakable gravelly voice, and calm, intimidating presence became instantly recognizable around the world. While many actors reinvented themselves every few years, Statham understood the value of consistency. He refined his screen persona instead of abandoning it. By this stage of his career, audiences weren't looking for surprises. They wanted the confidence that came with seeing Jason Statham do what he did best, delivering fast-paced action, performing convincing fight scenes, and walking calmly away from explosions with barely a change in expression. In an industry that constantly chased the next trend, that unwavering identity became surprisingly timeless. More than 25 years after his film debut, Jason Statham remains one of the few traditional action stars who can still open a movie on the strength of his name alone. Even as Hollywood has shifted toward superheroes and CGI-heavy blockbusters, he has stayed remarkably true to the style that made him famous. In recent years, Statham has continued to headline successful action films, including Wrath of Man, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, The Meg 2, The Trench, The Beekeeper, and A Working Man, proving that audiences still have a strong appetite for practical, hard-hitting action led by a charismatic star. Now in his late 50s, he remains in exceptional physical condition, maintaining the disciplined training habits that first began during his years as a competitive diver. Away from the cameras, Statham has built a stable and private family life. He has been in a long-term relationship with model and actress Rosie Huntington-Whiteley since 2010. The couple share 2 children, a son and a daughter, and divide much of their time between homes in the United States and the United Kingdom, choosing to keep their family life largely out of the spotlight. Perhaps that's Jason Statham's greatest achievement. He never tried to become someone else. Instead, he perfected the qualities audiences admired from the very beginning: toughness, discipline, and authenticity. While many stars are remembered for constantly reinventing themselves, Statham will likely be remembered for something far rarer, proving that consistency, when backed by genuine talent and unwavering commitment, can become a legacy all its own.